Hello, my name is Bobby Ammerman, Extension Associate for the University of Kentucky in the Department of Forestry. I'm the Chain of Custody Administrator for the Center for Forest and Wood Certification, and I just want to thank you for joining me here today. It's a requirement in the FSC program that you conduct and document or do some FSC training, and so this is a good step and will allow us to show evidence that you've done some training during any audits that you might have in the future. So again, thank you for participating, and hopefully we'll make this pretty short. Hoping to get this done in about 45 minutes. As you go through it, there'll be a lot of things. In this particular one, it's more of an overview, and there'll be a lot of things I'll skip over. And I hope that you will. I don't hope. I'm going to be doing some other videos to cover some more of the specific areas within this one. So hopefully you'll watch some of those as well as I get them developed. So this particular training module is for loggers. It's basically to provide you an overview of FSC certification, what's involved, a little bit of history and background, that kind of thing. And we've titled this thing Logger Overview TM002, and basically that just means the TM002 just means this is training module number 2. This is the second one that I've done, and again we're doing these so you have an easy way of conducting some FSC training. Either you can view these yourself, or maybe get in some situations maybe get your some of your employees to watch this, whatever it might be. If you're a logger, probably just one of you would be required to do this. Probably the one that does most of the bookkeeping, handles, purchasing, FSC tracks, that kind of thing. That should be the person that probably should watch this for sure. Now there are many different certification schemes. There on the right, you can see several of them, SFI, or at least the logos for several of them. SFI, American Tree Farm, FSC, and then some of those others are from around the world or other places here in North America. All these certification schemes really identify themselves with acronyms, so it really becomes a difficult thing to digest in terms of how these acronyms are thrown around out there. ATF, FSC, PFC, CSA, it's kind of like alphabet soup, and it's really hard to keep track of which acronym goes with which certification scheme and all that, and really just adds to the complexity of it. But my hope is, as we go along here, I'll provide you a little better understanding the difference between the other ones, and kind of why we're using FSC or why you're using FSC, that kind of thing. So to start, let's talk about a little bit of history. Basically, certification came about because back in the 80s and early 90s, there was a large movement by the environmental groups to try to convince large box stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, and even some larger office supply stores like Office Depot and some of those folks to try to change their buying practices, to try to get them to quit buying wood that they that originated, I should say, in the tropical rainforest regions. I remember growing up in the 80s, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of talk about the destruction of a rainforest, and so around the world, destruction of rainforests around the world. And so these environmental groups kind of seized on that and would protest in front of these large box stores like Home Depot. So eventually Home Depot just said, well, it's really uncomfortable for our customers to come in and buy wood products with these protesters out front. So we'll just have a company policy that basically says we just won't buy from those regions anymore. We'll make sure we understand where our supply chain's coming from, and we'll just refuse to buy from those areas. And so basically that kind of backfired on the environmental groups, because now you had these regions around the world, these rainforest regions that had the local citizenry there. Um, they they had built their life around, the sale of timber and the harvesting operations that occurred as a result. And so they basically had no income after we quit buying wood from those areas. And so what the end up happening is that they couldn't make a living, so they really just started clear cutting all those areas and using it for farmland because they had to survive. They had to find something to make some money and to live on, and that's what they kind of turned to. So it sort of backfired a little bit on the environmentalists. Didn't work out exactly like they planned, and so that's kind of how we got the certification. Now there are many certification schemes out there related to other products other than wood products. Underwriters Laboratory, the little UL symbol that you see on a lot of electrical appliances that you buy and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of us probably look for that, want to make sure that it's that appliance has been approved by the underwriters laboratory, so we know it's safe when we put it in our house. Same thing when we go buy beef. We want to know what grade of beef is it. Is it good quality beef, that kind of thing. So USDA Prime is another example of a certification. As well as the Motion Picture Association. They put out these ratings on their movies. I think almost all of us are familiar with that. So when we see a PG-13 rating, we have a pretty good idea what that means about the movie and what we're going to see. So when Home Depot and some of these other large stores, other large box stores, when they decided, okay, we're going to quit buying from those regions, and the local people started clear cutting those areas and converting them to agriculture, to farmland. The environmental groups realized, okay, well, this is not working the way we really wanted it to. So what they did was that's where these certification schemes come from, is they were trying to figure out a way that the local people could still sell some wood, some timber, still make a living from the forest, if you will, and do it in a way that's sustainable. Okay, and so that's what these schemes were designed to do, was to allow for some harvest to take place, but to be done in a way that was sustainable and would maintain the health of the forest. And so that's how we got to these certification schemes. Now it all kind of got started in the 90s in terms of the development of certification. It was pushed forward by NGOs, non-government organizations, environmental organizations, as well as the forest products industry. 1993, FSC developed the first certification scheme, and FSC was made up, and still is today, of equal parts of environmental, social, and economic chambers. And when it originally was put together, there was very little industry involved. Now that's changed a little bit over time. We have many more industry members now that's in the economic chamber. But when it first originated, there was very little industry involved with FSC. Now, in response to FSC, in 1995, Sustainable Forestry Initiative was formed, and that was formed by the American Forest and Paper Association, AF&PA, and basically they were trying to develop a certification scheme primarily for the United States that could oppose FSC, and at the same time oppose them in a way where there was much more industry involvement, so there was more industry friendly, if you will. Um, I don't want to use the word easier to achieve certification, but definitely maybe easier for us here in the U.S. to get our land certified to SFI versus FSC, just because the standard was designed specifically for the U.S. And then actually before 1995 and 1993, Canadian Standards Association actually developed their own scheme in Canada, which is very similar to the SFI scheme. And then in 1999, the program for the endorsement of forest certification, PEFC, was developed. And I'll get into that in a little bit, what PEFC is and what that means. And then, of course, since 1941, the old American Tree Farm system has always been there. The problem with American Tree Farm up until recently was that you could certify the timber, but there was no mechanism for bringing that timber from the forest to the market, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute as well. Today, there are more than 50 certification schemes across the world, or around the world. So PEFC is much like FSC in the case that it is recognized around the world. You know, SFI, Sustainable Forestry Initiative, is not necessarily accepted in other places other than the U.S. And so, so what PEFC has done is they have created a worldwide label, and they will accept these other groups into these other schemes, if you will, into their system. They will endorse them. So, like for Sustainable Forestry Initiative, the only way that you really can sell SFI material around the world is through the endorsement that PEFC has given SFI. And so we can actually have timber here growing in the U.S. that's an SFI certified timberland, and through the PEFC endorsement, that material can be sold around the world as PEFC. So SFI is one certification scheme here in the U.S. that PEFC has endorsed. They've also now endorsed the American Tree Farm, and so now American Tree Farm has a mechanism for their timber to be harvested and then marketed, not only just in the U.S. but now around the world. So now they have the ability to do that because of the endorsement from PEFC. Now, this FSC is a scheme that you can have an FSC forest right here in the U.S., harvest that timber, turn it into product, and then sell that product under the FSC label anywhere around the world. And so that's the difference between FSC is that FSC doesn't recognize any other certification schemes other than their own. So if it doesn't start as an FSC forest, there's no way that their label can be put on any wood product that's sold anywhere. So that's the big difference between the PEFC and the FSC. PEFC basically is an endorsement of other schemes, and FSC has their own complete program from beginning to end, and they do not accept any other schemes into their system. So if you want to sell a product with an FSC claim or an FSC label on it, it has to start as FSC in the very beginning. So where do we stand with certification today? Really, FSC is the big driver in terms of demand and being able to get more for the material. FSC really is the gold standard, if you will. We see demand coming out of Europe for FSC material, more so on the western side of Europe. The eastern side seems to be more, or I got that backwards. The western side is more PEFC, and the eastern side is more FSC in East Europe. And we see here in the U.S., we see programs, LEED programs or LEED buildings. Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design is what LEED stands for, and LEED will only accept FSC wood into those LEED certified buildings if the contractor, if the builder is trying to use the wood products credit in the development of the program for the building. So it really it's only worth 1 point. So really, it doesn't. A lot of these contractors will find other ways to get those points. But if the contractor needs that 1 point, that one credit, from the wood products, then it has to be FSC. Lee does not accept any other scheme at the present. Now there is a pilot project with SFI, but it, to my knowledge, my understanding, it really hasn't taken off. It hasn't been well accepted by the architects and contractors around the country. So at this point, it's still really FSC, even though there's been some push to allow some other another scheme into the program. And the bigger driver for FSC is the pulp and paper industry, and that's really the folks that are really pushing for more FSC um, wood going into their paper products. And it's probably why you're watching this video right now, is because you're probably sending pulpwood into a chip mill or into a paper plant, and they're needing the FSC credits. So again, that's probably why you're watching this video. There are two stages or types to certification. So there's forest management certification. It's a process of determining if the forest operations meet predetermined environmental, economic, and social standards, and where an independent auditing body conducts an inspection and awards a certificate pending conformance to standards developed by a specific certification body. And then the other side to it, or the second part to it, is the chain of custody, and that's to provide clear separation and demarcation of certified and uncertified forest products at all stages, including forest sites, processing, shipping, manufacturing, and wholesale and distribution stages. Okay, so the big difference between the two stages here, or two types, is you can't have certified material moving through an FSC chain of custody program if it didn't start as FSC certified timberland. Okay, so you have to have the forest management certification in place in order for you as a logger to be able to sell logs that you are harvesting as FSC certified. So it's got to be, this forest itself has to be certified first, and then as you purchase the timber, then sell the logs, you can market the logs that you sell as FSC certified, as long as it originated at a forest that was FSC certified. Or I should say is FSC certified, because they don't really lose a certification after the harvest. They have to keep that in place. Now, an example of what we're talking about with this chain of custody process, you start with a certified forest, and as it moves from that forest to the logger, and then onto the chip mill, and then onto the paper mill, and even in some cases to the retailer, each one of those ownerships of that forest product has to be FSC certified in order for the final product that is created to carry an FSC label or claim. Okay, and we can see down at the bottom here, that cup, the only way that cup can carry that label is if all those owners of that material in the process was FSC certified, and the wood from the beginning was FSC certified to start with. Otherwise, that cup cannot carry that FSC claim or label. Now, if you're not in a group, if you're getting a certificate on your own and you're going directly to the certification body, basically certification bodies, they're folks that just basically provide the certification. FSC does not provide that directly. They don't have a mechanism in place to provide that. And so what they do is they basically sub that out to these certification bodies then to provide the certification to industries. Okay, and they have the certification bodies. They have requirements they have to meet, maintain. They get audited annually themselves, and so if all that is good, then FSC will sign off on them being able to provide these individual certificates to each one of the companies or industries. Now there is one exception to that. Again, I've brought this up before. It's this group certification process. In order to be in a group, you have to be less than 5 million in annual revenue. Um, and I will ask you probably every March we'll send out a total revenue form that we'll ask you to fill out, and basically that's the process by which we'll go through to document that you are actually under the 5 million in annual revenue. So we'll ask for that annually. Usually, like I said, it goes out in March. So say this year, March 2019, we'll be looking for what your annual revenue was for 2018. Okay, and when we say revenue, we're talking about all wood sales. Okay, now if you get paid for some excavating work, or you get paid for hauling some logs somewhere that's separate from your business or whatever, that's not part of what you normally do, then that can be discounted potentially. So we're only talking about wood sales and not anything else. So not excavating, not getting paid for trucking, that kind of thing. Now the way these groups work is if you're in a group, um, basically you share a certificate with all those that are listed on the that's listed in the group or as part of the group. And so you as a logger, once you um, pass all of the requirements of certification, we accept you into the group, then your name will be listed on our certificates. So when you go to the FSC's website, you're really looking for the Center for Forestry Wood Certifications Chain of Custody certificate, and then under that certificate, your name, your company name will be listed within that certificate. Okay, and the big thing here in understanding is that if you have an individual certificate, you're going to get audited annually by the certification body. Okay, if you're in a group, you won't get audited annually every year by the certification body. There's a subset of the members that the certification body will choose to audit every year. Basically, audits just to make sure that everything is in place, that you're doing things correctly, and you're not cheating the system or trying to cheat the system, that kind of thing. So that's what those audits are about. Now, normally, when or if you're not selected, you're still audited annually, and that's done as an internal audit. That'd be probably done by me or somebody within the Center for Forestry Wood Certification that has qualifications to provide or to do that audit. And in that case, you basically be audited by a familiar face or a friendly face, if you will. But again, there will be a certain percentage of the group members that get selected for this audit process every year. And it could be that, well, it probably will be that, if you get audited this year, you probably externally, again, you probably won't get audited next year externally. Probably would be an internal audit then. And we still, on the internal audits, we're still looking for the same kind of things. We're still trying to determine if you're doing things the right way, that kind of thing. But it's a little more relaxed environment, and of course, a lot of you probably already will know me, so we'll be able to to work a little bit one-on-one more so than this external process. So it can be a little bit more anxious, if you will, going through the external versus the internal. Now the standard you'll be certified against is FSC standard 40-004 version 3. That is the chain of custody standard. And unless you're trying to move FSC controlled wood, and if you are, then you probably not. I'm probably dealing with you differently, and you might watch this video, but we'd probably be asking you to do a lot more, so you'll be fully aware you're moving controlled wood if that would be the case. So probably for you, this is the only standard that you'll be audited against and that you're certified to. So basic requirements of becoming certified is first you got to have a set of written procedures. You have to conduct some FSC training and document that you did that, and then you have to pass an audit. Okay, so this is, in your situation, this is going to be an internal audit. That internal audits happen all the first year when you first get signed up for the group. Now again, when the audit rolls around, at the beginning of the year. Our audits usually run from January to March, something like that. So when these audits roll around in the future during that time frame, you could be asked to be part of an external audit process. But initially, these are all done with these internal audits that either myself would be doing, and at this point, I've done all the internal auditing, or someone that we've appointed from within the Center for Forestry Certification that's qualified to do. Now, I will, at this point, it may not be clear to you, or it might be, your written procedures, I'll draft those for you. So you won't have to do those yourself. I will at some point, we'll have a conversation on the phone. That may have already taken place. I'll gather some information from you, and I'll draft those procedures for you. And then when I get those procedures drafted, I'll give you a copy of them. And from those procedures, then you'll have to conduct your training, okay, and document that you did that. And I'll show you later on in the video how you can go about documenting that you did the training. And so one of the things you can do is actually watch this video, or you might have some of your folks that work for you watch this too. And then we'll have some other smaller videos that will be more specific to some of the guys that might be working for you. In other words, how do you handle low tickets and that kind of thing. So we'll have training modules just for that, and get into more detail about how to do those things. And then again, you have to pass the internal audit, which may require some corrective measures if there's something missing, or you don't have all the things in place that you need. So there are four claims that can be used on FSC materials. Now, since you're a logger, you'll only really be using the FSC 100%. So we don't have to really talk about the other three with you, because again, you're buying timber from certified land, and so that makes it FSC 100%. And then on all your documentation that you use to sell that material, those logs, you need to identify it as FSC 100%. So one of the things in your written procedures that you're required to do is have a suppliers list. So, you know, if you're a logger, you're probably only going to have one supplier. Now, this particular logger here that we have in the group, they only buy from Coal Creek, okay? And so as long as they don't buy from anybody else, this will stay static in their procedures, okay? So they'll never be updated. Now, if they go and they buy from somebody other than Coal Creek, then that supplier would have to be added to this suppliers list, which will be embedded in your written procedures, okay? And so basically, if you do need to add a supplier, you're probably best reaching out to me, and I can kind of walk you through it, okay? And I'll have my contact information at the end of the video where you can reach me. But I wouldn't be surprised if you already have, you know, email and phone number and that already. But if you don't, it will be at the end of the video. Yeah, I failed to mention, I want to make sure it's completely understood that we're only talking about FSC suppliers here. So if you need to add a new FSC supplier to your FSC suppliers list, then that's when you probably should get in contact with me, so we can make sure your your suppliers list reflects that. So anyway, I didn't say that very well, and I just wanted to make sure you understand that this is only for FSC suppliers. If you have other suppliers, they don't need to be on this list. You don't have to worry about them. This is only for your FSC suppliers. One of the things that you have to do is you have to verify that your suppliers, where you buy your FSC material, or in your case, your standing timber, you have to verify that landowner is FSC certified, okay? And the way you do that is by going to the FSC website. Now, the link to the FSC website is there at the bottom, www.info.fsc.org. And again, at some point, I'll put up a shorter video that will walk you through exactly how to verify your suppliers. Now, some of you guys that are in our group, we take care of that for you in a different way. Okay, so the loggers that, for example, supplying the potlatch, um, um, those guys at potlatch do those verifications for you, so you won't have to worry about it as long as you're buying from Michigan DNR. If you start buying from somewhere else, then we need to have a conversation. We need to make sure you know how to verify those suppliers and that kind of thing. And actually, the potlatch guys, it's written up in your procedures that you can't buy from anybody else through our certificate. So you'd actually be violating the CFWC policies if you did sell that material to somebody other than potlatch. For you guys that are moving logs into the Evergreen system, it's the same thing. Ron Heatherly at Evergreen is doing your verifications for you, and he'll provide you with a printed verification sheet to attach to your contract that you sign with the landowner every time that you buy FSC materials. Also, Ron will provide you with a set of load tickets. Okay, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, a little bit more detail, but he'll provide you a book of load tickets as well to keep track of your FSC materials. Okay. And then, Potlatch is doing something similar for you guys as well. They'll provide you a cab card or a load ticket that will stay with the load, and there's a procedure for how you have to go about handling that. So again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail here in a bit. Now, when you sign a contract with a certified landowner, besides the verification that you must do, you want to make sure that in that contract it states that landowner is FSC 100%. Okay, and it also needs to include their FM code. Okay, a date and a location. So when you verify that landowner is certified, you also want to make sure that location is accurate, because if they're in a group, you're going to be dealing with multiple members with multiple locations, and so you want to make sure that that particular location is actually listed within that certificate. Okay, and again, I'll go into this a little more detail later, but if you have an issue with understanding this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me so we can talk about it and walk you through it, kind of thing. You also need a list of species on that contract, um, an estimated volume and lump sum that's going to be purchased, or just a note in the contract that purchase price and amount is based on, not price, purchase amount is based on the scale information once it's delivered to the customer. Okay, that needs to be included in the contract. If it is, then you don't have to worry about this estimated volume thing. Um, yeah, if bought on shares or purchase volumes are determined by scale, yeah, you need to include that in the contract. So that's all the things that you need on the contract. And again, if there's any issue about any of this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, or we can discuss it, figure it out, whatever. When you go to the website, here's some things you want to be looking for. So again, Ron Headley, if you're an Evergreen guy, is going to be providing this, so you won't have to worry too much about it. But you want to make sure that underneath the certificate data that the status is valid. Okay, so again, Ron's probably going to provide this for you if you're an Evergreen, which this one is here. You see the name up there is Evergreen Forest Certification Program. And then, you really need to check and make sure that the main output category down here in the bottom right says FSC 100%. And the product type is W1, rough wood, here on the left at the bottom. So if those two things don't match up, or that's not listed under the products when you go verify the supplier, then there's some kind of issue there, and it's probably better just for us to talk about it. So you call me up, email me, whatever, and we look at it. Yeah, so load tickets. I'm gonna go into those just a little bit. I don't want to get too carried away talking about load tickets, because again, we're gonna hopefully have another video that will go into more detail about load tickets. But basically, you have to have a load ticket as a logger, and that load ticket has to travel with the load from the stump to the mill. Okay, and And really you need to have at least a 2-part ticket. Now this one here's a 3-part, but you need to retain one of those tickets. And basically most people have a book, and in some cases that book is provided. The Evergreen guys, you guys will get a book from Ron, and the Potlatch guys, I think you have a card to work with and specific requirements for how that's handled and used as well. But you have to have some sort of ticket, again, that travels with the load from the mill to the stump. And on that ticket, of course, it includes the typical stuff, date, destination, potentially the driver, where the load's coming from, that kind of thing. But it also will have to include the main 2 components to this, at least in my opinion, is the main 2 components, is it has to include the FSC claim, which is in your case always going to be FSC 100%, and it also needs to include your COC code, which is NC-00 or dash, I'm sorry, NC-0. I need to start over again. NC-COC-007619. Okay, and that should be both listed on the ticket that remains in the book, as well as the ticket that goes with the load if you are using a 2-part or even a 3-part ticket system here. So anyway, I'll go into more detail about that, how that's supposed to work in another video. But I mainly want you to understand here that a load ticket has to travel with the load, and it has to have the FSC claim on it as well as your COC code. There are other documents that are required other than load tickets and contracts, and I'll just cover those here fairly briefly. A lot of these are documents or what may be required inside your written procedures that you won't have to give too much thought to, but I do want to go over them real briefly so at least you're aware of them. One of the things that is required is a products group schedule, and I will, when you enroll in a group, I will have created this for you, and we'll embed that inside your written procedures. So unless you start purchasing something other than standard timber, you are selling something other than logs, in other words, chips or something like that, you probably won't have to give this much thought. If you do something other than buy standing timber or sell something other than logs, you need to really get up with me, and let's discuss that. We may need to change your written procedures a bit to account for whatever it is that you may be doing. You have to sign a declaration of commitment to FSC values. So that's what this is. So in order for you to get in a group and be initially accepted, you have to be willing to date and sign this. Okay. By the way, I will provide these to you, a blank copy, and just it'll look just like this is here, but I'll provide it to you so you don't have to worry about getting a copy of it to date and sign. You do have to keep track of your loads, so there's usually a means by which we can do that without you having to, as a logger, having to enter this stuff in a spreadsheet or whatever. We can usually request from the sawmill or from the chip mill. We can usually ask them to provide us with a list of loads that you've sent over a given period of time, and use that for audits if we need it. So we've done everything we can to keep you as a logger from having to fill out one of these spreadsheets every time that you move a load. Now it could get to that point where we have to do that, but right now for all of you, we have figured out a way to get that information when needed without you having to physically write these in there in a spreadsheet or wherever it might be. We figured out how to do that just by asking the mills to provide it for us. They're able to basically hit a button, put in a range, a date range, and then it'll spit out all the stuff that you sent to them, which makes it very handy. Now we do ask that you keep those settlement sheets. Okay, we want you to keep those on file. Keep those for at least 5 years. That's a FSC requirement. All your documentation related to your FSC program you have to have or have for a minimum of 5 years. And you'll be asked that during audit, so we need to make sure that you answer 5 years. That's very important. Now, you will have to fill out a volume summary annually. Now, the good thing with this is a lot of times I can get this without you having to be much involved. So for the evergreen loggers, I'll reach out to Ron Headley or directly to the chip mill that you're sending your material to, and then I can get them to give me a total of the volume that you sold them or delivered to them, and then I'm able to generate this volume summary for you. Okay, same thing for the potlatch guys. When that material goes in up there, the mill is able to give me a total on all the material that were moved during a given period of time by you, and then I'm able to generate this for you. So this is what it is. It's very likely you won't have to worry about it too much because we'll take care of it on our end for you. But anyway, it's probably a good idea for you to at least know what the volume summary is and that we are building it for your records. And I'll probably annually provide you a copy of this so that you can keep it, and again, keep it for a minimum of 5 years. So additionally, if you have any aspirations to use FSC logos on for any purposes on websites or um, business cards or anything like that, you have to have approval before you can use those logos. So basically, just get in touch with me. If you decide you want to promote the fact you're FSC certified, get in contact with me and I'll walk you through that process of getting those logos approved. Okay. We'll need to mock up some sort of delivery tickets and invoices. So again, if you're working with potlatch or evergreen, we sort of got that taken care of. If you're selling to somebody else, then we might have to work a little bit more one-on-one to get those. But we have to have a delivery ticket mocked up that you will actually use in practice. Hauling your material from the forest to the whoever you're selling it to. The COC standard requires you to appoint a person responsible for the company safety program. So, if you don't have a safety program, let's talk about it. I can probably help you come up with something. But you have to have some kind of safety program. Now, it doesn't have to be a real intensive thing. That could be, if you're a logger that does tailgate meetings, you could talk about safety a little bit at the tailgate meeting, document that you did that, and then we'd have that document then to show auditors that you're actually doing some safety training and that you have a program in place. And then of course the auditor will want to ask you questions about it, that kind of thing. But the main thing is that you have a documented program that we can show the auditor if ever asked. Now the COC standard also requires for certified companies to appoint someone responsible for the FSC program. Okay. And so we'll have that listed in your procedures as someone, whoever you appoint, being the person in charge of that program. So whenever audits roll around or anything like that, that person is going to be the one that either myself or the certification body reaches out to to handle the audit or whatever it might be. You're also required to have a complaint mechanism. I have that built into the procedures. Just need to kind of be aware of it, know that it exists. And you might get asked about it during audit, so you would need to be able to say, oh, well, I've got one in the procedures. Don't necessarily have it memorized. And by the way, we have we have a little video that goes into this in more detail. It goes into basically the changes to the new standard and the complaint mechanism is one of them. So I highly would encourage you to go watch that other video. And I think it's GENTM001. So probably you should watch it if I haven't already asked you to do that. So anyway, you just need to be aware that there's a complaint mechanism in your procedures. Basically, if somebody makes a complaint about your program, maybe you're doing something wrong or ineffective or whatever, there's a process by which you got to go through to make sure you've corrected that issue, or at least it made a determination that there was no issue. Okay, and nobody asks you for you to memorize that, but it is written in your procedure. So if you do, I get asked, what do you do if you do get a complaint? And you just need to simply say, well, I don't have it memorized, but I'll go to my procedures and follow whatever it says. Of course, one of the things you're going to have to do right away is just get a hold of me. Um, so anyway, just know that you got a complaint mechanism in your procedures. And again, all these records associated with your FSC program, you need to maintain these for a minimum of 5 years. That is a requirement in the standard. Now, lastly, to finish up here, um, you've done the training, so now you got to document it. Okay, so there's an attachment in your procedures, probably attachment A. Okay, now I will at some point have sent you a 3-ring binder with this attachment in that binder. Okay, and so when you do this, at some point, get that binder, that 3-ring notebook, and find the attachment that has the training registration sheet, and date that, and put in the name of this training module. Okay, which is Logger Overview TM002. So you want that in the CCP area of training. Okay, and then you can list me as an instructor, and then you sign it. Okay, and then again, keep that for 5 years. All right. So when you get audited or whatever, you can pull this out and go, okay, well, I watched this video that Bobby did, and here's the evidence when I did it. Okay, and then they'll, the auditor will go on to something else. Okay, so it's real important that you do this training every so often. And again, I'm Bobby Ammerman. Here's my contact information. My email there is at the bottom, BAMMERMA@uky.edu. And my cell number is 606-424-9981. Now, that is my personal cell number. But please, if you need to get a hold of me, sometimes I'm hard to get hold of in the office. Don't hesitate to call that number. Be glad to talk to you. And really, we really, really would prefer solving issues before they occur than after the fact. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you got a question or whatever it might be. All right, thank you very much, and look forward to the next one.